Every year, Startup Grind hosts our SG Women Leaders Month, proudly recognizing the accomplishments of successful women leaders all over the world. These women are founders, venture capitalists, engineers, executives, educators, and more who represent our community all around the world. This month's SG Women Month is proudly presented by Google for Startups and Silicon Valley Bank.
Everybody, we are here today to talk about, oh my God, part 2 of Legal Proof Your Business. If y'all wasn't in the room last week, y'all missed a treat in the virtual law offices of LeTonya Moore. She blessed me so much, she made me do my own homework for my brain. And I'm glad I did, because it helps me move into that new phase, that new level that we're trying to go into. Many of us are moving virtually. I know I am. Behind the scenes, despite what everybody see, I'm yet working on my brain as well. But we have a special treat. We have an additional attorney in the room. I'm so honored. Lord, I'm so honored. I got to tell the truth lawyers in the room today. Well, I just want to welcome everybody to Startup-Grind-Jacksonville chapter. This is our Startup Grinds Women's Month. It is sponsored by Google for Startups and the Silicon Valley Bank in San Francisco, California. We want to thank them for recognizing Startup Grind women, not just in Jacksonville, but around the globe. I shared with LeTonya last week, there are over 7,000 Startup Grind events for women going on this month in our global community. And I was amazed when I saw the calendar. So, topics, we have had rock star speakers on our platform, Guy Kiyosaki. We had the lady that's over the CEO of 23andMe. We've had the Google Academy in the United Kingdom, the founder and originator of that. So it's just been amazing all month. So just don't patronize the Jacksonville chapter. You may want to check out the other chapters of some of your favorite rock star speakers. So I'm going to be quiet, because I'm going to let the Tell the Truth lawyers do their thing today. But I just want to introduce our attorney for the month for Startup Grind is Attorney LeTonya Moore, and her amazing colleague that I just met was Attorney Shahara Wright. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I know you are both welcome. I am privileged and honored. And sometimes it's real hard to get lawyers to do things like this and at this magnitude. So I want to thank you, ladies, for your service, what you do, how you're making an impact in your practices in your area of specialty, and taking this time out with us today. I know Attorney Moore, last week we was talking about intellectual property. It got so good. This week, we supposed to talk about data protection, male dominance, and authority. We got a whole lot of stuff going on. And I'm like this: however you want to flow, you can flow. I'm going to be the student today. I may pop in and ask some questions, to say something people won't ask. But I will be moderating the chat, so y'all don't have to worry about that. I just want y'all to flow with the content that we need in this hour during this pandemic. So I am going to turn the virtual floor to both of you. So virtually, I introduce to some and present to everybody globally, Attorney Moore and Attorney Wright. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, again, thank you for bringing us back this week. Like I mentioned last week, we really couldn't push everything into 1 week, because if we had done that, we would not really be able to do justice to either data privacy or intellectual property. So thank you guys for being flexible and allowing us both to come and talk about data privacy this week. So just very quickly, Attorney Wright and I have known each other in cyberspace for several years. We operate in the same space in that we service small businesses, low to mid seven figure corporate entities. And we decided to join forces here recently when everything started to go online and everything started to go virtually, because we realized we both have a passion for protecting businesses. We both have a passion for making sure that small businesses have the same caliber of services that these larger corporations have, and that, quite frankly, we could do a lot more and have a larger impact if we come together. So we've come together, and it is our mission to inform and educate small businesses on data privacy, because what we've seen is that they really believe that it is a large corporate problem. It's a large corporation problem. I'm a small business. I only have 15 million in sales. I don't have to think about that, or even less, right? If you are a business, data privacy is important. So before I go all into that, I want to give Attorney Wright an opportunity to let you guys know more about who she is, about her company, and what she does.
Thank you so much, LeTonya, for that great introduction. So I'm in Texas. I've been practicing for 21 years, and most of that time, 20 of those 21 years, I've been focused on small businesses, doing day-to-day legal advice, small businesses and nonprofits, doing day-to-day legal advice for them. And last year, I really started talking about data privacy with my clients all before this COVID thing. And in January, I started putting out a lot more information about data privacy and giving more information about it. Of course, as Attorney Moore said, people really weren't paying attention. People weren't really thinking about that. And then COVID hit. And then all of a sudden, people had to adjust to what it really meant to be online, how they could ensure privacy and those kinds of things. And then people really started to pay attention and say, hey, this matters to us. Because I think with a lot of small businesses, not even so much depending upon their sales, but how they operate. They may still operate from home. They may only have 2, 3, 4 employees, or, they may utilize independent contractors. They're using third-party services. So they're feeling like we're not actually hosting any information. I don't actually collect data from my clients or my customers. I don't really, have anything of that. Oh, that's, PayPal that handles all the credit card. I don't keep all that information. Or, I use a third-party service to actually handle all of my CRM and those kinds of things. So I don't collect that. And that's just not true. These are things that you have access to, that you ask your clients and customers to give to you to be able to do whatever they need to do. And so that means you do collect data, and you have to be responsible for that data. And we are seeing now more and more states in the US are starting to enact their own laws regarding data privacy. And that means that instead of waiting until something bad happens, we're here to tell you now, let's get ahead of that, so to make sure that you don't have problems going forward, because those fines can be hefty.
Yeah, absolutely. And the difference between smaller businesses and larger corporations is that for the most part, you will not be able to survive a data breach, right? The damages that are associated with that, and the requirements for even businesses that are multi-million-dollar businesses, which again, I told you, we deal with small businesses that are around that 10, 15, $20 million range, and they cannot survive a data breach. Because one of the things about information that's different from products is that information can be held for many, 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 many years, or compromised information can be held for many, many, many years before it's actually utilized, right? It goes through lots of hands. I would definitely invite you guys to do your research on the black market when it comes to information. A lot of times people don't think about data crimes. They don't think about that. Why do you think that large corporations are paying ransom to get the information released, right? Just because you're a small business doesn't mean that you won't be a target, right? Imagine, for example, if you're a small company that does tax returns. I mean, you are definitely a target because you have all of the information that a person could utilize to actually become someone else. and steal a person's identity. So you really have to think about that. And it's like Shahara said, oftentimes you just believe that because you're using a third party, that it's not your responsibility. I would definitely invite you to read the terms of use. Actually read it. Don't just click the box that says you read it, because that puts you on the hook for knowing that information. Go back, look at the terms of use, look at what it says your responsibilities are, look at what it says their responsibility is. And truth be told, you are the person that the client or customer gave the information to. It doesn't matter that there's a third party platform. I guarantee you that when you look at it, you're going to see something in there called an indemnification clause, which means that if this data is compromised, it's up to you to deal with the customer. And you have to now protect the company or the platform. Why? Because you are the person that gave them the information. Most people don't know that. Most small companies don't even read. And so I'm encouraging you to do that. And there are a lot of ways that you can, first of all, the first one is reading the terms of use and understanding. But Attorney Wright and I, we always encourage you to have a policy in place, have some type of document in place, and have a compliance procedure. And so I'll turn it over to the expert on the policies and procedures and the types of things that you need to consider, because these are the things that we talk with our clients about.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, because I think one of the bigger issues that we see with small businesses is, they'll take a policy, a privacy policy from somewhere, stick it up on their website and think, okay, I'm done. I've done everything I needed to do on data privacy. And it's like, no, that's just the beginning, right? That's just the first step, basic step that you should have. The next step is, how do you actually handle that data in your office? And I find that a lot of times with small businesses, they have no idea about how their data is actually being handled. So let's just take, for example, a small digital retail store. So maybe you sell stuff on Etsy or Shopify or whatever you're doing, right? You may have millions of dollars in sales, but everything is running through Etsy and Shopify and whatever else you use to do that. But then you have someone who is helping you with your marketing. So they have access to all of the information about who your shoppers are. They have the information as to what they're buying, so that they can target the ads like they need to, so they can, do the pixels. And so you're thinking, well, I'm just hiring them to do the marketing, but they have access, right, to the emails. They have access to the buyer habits. They have access to where these people are purchasing from, all of this information that they have that they can access. And how do you know what they're doing with it? What policies and procedures and protections do you have in place to ensure that this marketing person isn't taking the data and using it for some other purpose? Maybe that person has another digital store that they're running ads for. Are they using that information to help their other client? Do you know? Do you have anything to prevent that from happening? So these are certain things that make a difference to everyday businesses, right? No matter how much you're making, because I know sometimes people will be like, well, I'm not making 7 figures, I'm only making 2 million. Let me tell you, it doesn't make it matter if it's $200, 20 million, 2 million. It all applies to you still, that this matters, that you have to ensure that. So, going back to my example, if that marketing person takes that information and starts using it for some other store, then now you have a data breach. That's what you have. You have a data breach because somebody else's information was taken without their permission and used for a purpose that they did not agree to. That is a data breach. So it doesn't have to be something that you're hacked into. It doesn't have to be some ransom. It doesn't have to be, stolen information in the sense that you're thinking about it. It could be as simple as somebody else using information that you've hired to use that information. So if you don't have any internal policies, if you don't have, any non-disclosures and, non-solicitations and all those kinds of things in place for your workers, then you are creating a problem in terms of the data breach. And it starts with you. And those are really likely to happen, especially in small businesses, because there aren't any internal controls about how data is handled.
And
I'm over here and I'm like, Lord, help the day. She over here making me. I'm like, I know I got that. I'm just blown away right now because I have worked with entrepreneurs in the past, and I literally had somebody that had a data breach because they hired somebody. And I asked a question before they actually turned over everything for this person to do the marketing. And I'm like, do you have policies in place to protect them? Because you're giving them so much access. And I'm even leery, how much, access I give people. And they say, well, you're going to have to, lift up some of the controls. No, because if something happens, I'm liable as the business. So that is amazing. Go ahead, Attorney Moore. I'm just amazed. I'm just amazed right now, but I'm taking notes. You better believe it.
I was just gonna piggyback on that and say internal controls, that is your gatekeeper, right? You got to have some level of a gatekeeper in place. Policies and procedures are great, but if you don't have a mechanism for making sure that they are working, making sure that those internal controls are in place to prevent, you want to be on the preventative side of a breach. You don't want to be on the reactive side. A lot of small businesses don't even have general commercial liability policies. And then the ones that do, they don't have data protection covered, right? They don't even have cyber coverage, even though their entire business is online. Mm-hmm. And this is why it's important that when you are working with an insurance professional, that is someone that's familiar with your business, right? They're familiar with your industry. They are familiar with your business operations enough to make the proper suggestions. And let me just say this, don't be cheap, right? Don't say, well, I'm not going to add it because, it's going to add an extra $80, right? I don't really think I need it, but this is the primary way in which you operate your business. You have a fully virtual business, and $80 is not enough. And here's why I want to put it in perspective, because of everyone that I know that has a virtual business, there's some aspect of that business that they run from their smartphone.
Right.
$80 a month is cheaper than any smartphone, any good smartphone service that you would ever have. Think about that. You are willing to pay more for your smartphone than you are to pay to protect your business online. Because just one breach can take a small company out of business. Only one breach can do that. And quite frankly, oftentimes the reason that there's not more small businesses that go under is because they never notify the consumers. That's number one, which is required by law that you do, but they don't do that. Mm-hmm. And then if they do contact the consumers aren't clear about what their recourse is because they don't tell them. But the law requires that when you inform them, you are also supposed to let them know what recourse they have or how to find out their recourse. So what I'm saying is we as small business owners, and this is something that Attorney Wright and I are very passionate about, this country is really built on small businesses, right? Small businesses are the bulk of the entrepreneurs that are here in this country. And so when you think about that, you have to be smart and you have to be proactive, not reactive. Because being reactive can actually take you out of business. And so what we have started doing on a periodic basis is we do privacy forums, right? We have webinars. Attorney Wright has a LinkedIn live stream that she dedicates a portion of that to data privacy. And so what we're doing right now is we are educating, we are informing, we are providing opportunities. We've actually created some programs, some data privacy prevention type of programs specifically for small businesses that they can definitely find out more about and connect with us so that we can assist them in making sure that all of these bases are covered, making sure that they have the proper internal controls, making sure that their general liability policy covers the type of breaches that they may come in contact with. Because again, You always want to make sure that you have the right coverage, which is why it's important. We also look at, if you want to take your policy from, Google Law, right? You can do that, but I guarantee you that 80% of them are not going to be effective because you don't know what you're looking for. You just know it says privacy policy, but you have no idea whether this particular policy even applies to your industry because you don't know what you're looking for. And so what I want to encourage everyone to do is you want to connect with someone that can assist you in this area. Because while a lot of people are saying they want to get back to normal, I just want to tell you, this is it.
Yeah.
It's not a new normal. It is normal. Right? This is our life. This is our life moving forward. I just do not believe that we are ever going to go back where everything is primarily face to face, right? There's certain things, but I just don't think that we are. And even if I'm wrong, it is definitely not going to be in the foreseeable future, just because there's some things that we have to get a handle on. This is why it's very important now, again, to be proactive, because the more proactive you are, the more profitable you can become.
That's amazing. Go ahead, Attorney Wright.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yes, I agree with all of that. I think that this has to be at the forethought of how you're doing business now, because this is the only thing that makes sense. As you've taken in more information over the phone, through the internet, whatever you're doing, you're collecting more and more information, right? And that data, all data is information. So you're collecting more and more information about your clients, your customers, and things like that, so that you have to have some kind of way in which you're dealing with that and how you're keeping that stuff private, because of course people are expecting. And, just kind of going back to what Attorney Moore said about taking your privacy policies from, Google Law or wherever you take it from, right? You stick them up. Have you read them? Do you know what they even say that you do? And are you even doing what they say that you do? Because a lot of times people will take these policies and they don't even know what it says. And they just said, well, I just saw this really great website. They had a really long thing. I'm sure their lawyers did it. I just changed, my name and put it in there, so I'm sure it's good. Okay, it probably is good. I'm not even going to argue and say that it isn't. But do you know what it says? Do you know what it obligates you to do? Because if you're not doing what that says, now you have a breach of contract, right? So now you've breached your own thing that you said that you did, that you had your people agree to. You have to know what's happening and you have to connect the dots. You can't just leave it with the policy, not take it into the privacy policy online, not take it into procedures, and then not implement it and ensure that you have regulations and, ensure how you're actually making sure that happens. I know that it seems like a lot. It doesn't have to be a lot. It really doesn't have to be hard if you make it a part of what your business does anyway. So if you start ingraining it and do it now, then after a while, it just becomes part of the process and how you do business, which is what it should be. So it's not something that has to be difficult in terms of you doing this, but it definitely should be something that you make a part of the business and a priority, because otherwise the damages that can come from this are so significant that you, as Attorney Moore said at the beginning, you won't be able to survive. That's just the bottom line.
Wow. I'm so in amazement right now. My mind is just going. And some of that I'm kind of guilty of Google Law, but I have not, because I'm an avid research, but I have not implemented a lot of stuff, because I know when I did my contracts for consulting, I was a part of that process, because I'm the type, I like to learn and understand contracts, because I don't want to make promises for something I'm not going to be able to fulfill. So that's good to know. Now, you mentioned something a while back, I think Attorney Moore did, about the data breach and protection. I recently learned last year that Microsoft has a feature with Microsoft 365, I think it is, or Azure, A-Z-U-R-E, that say, for instance, I hire a marketing person, I give them their own independent laptop, and for some reason they get lost, they get damaged. There's a way, or there's a feature as an administrator, I can wipe that whole device clean where they don't get the data. I'm gonna look into, a little bit more, but I think it's under that subscription. They are the only tech company I've heard of that has that option. And then hearing this from you ladies, it makes so much more sense, when you're hiring staff. Because even if they sign these agreements that you all are suggesting we put into place, how can the founder or the CEO of the company monitor the fact whether or not they're doing data sharing?
Right.
How can we be able to detect that once we do put all these forms in place? I do have this feature from Microsoft to strip the data from the device, but what indicator will I know, or any entrepreneur would know, if someone is sharing their data that they hire?
So
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I said there's a couple of things that you can do, and it's kind of a combination, right? It's no one thing. First and foremost, I believe in training, right? You cannot just have people sign off on stuff and then not explain to them how you expect things to be handled, how you expect it to go. You can't do that. So you have to make sure that you train people properly and train them often, because I know a lot of times with small business owners, you don't have a lot of time. You're always busy, but people would maybe spend 5, 10, 15 minutes doing a training, and then they never come back, and then they get mad because they're like, oh, these employees, they don't really understand and get up. I'm like, well, how much time did you spend training these people? Like, you have to do that, and you have to constantly do this. So that's one thing. The second thing is that there's software out there. There's things available out there to see when, to protect the data, to keep stuff from being transferred that isn't supposed to be transferred, controlling access, not allowing any and everybody to have, passwords, having their own logins. I know sometimes people don't want to pay for multiple licenses. So because they don't want to pay for multiple licenses, 20 people got the same password to the thing. Those are kinds of things that you can do to kind of protect the flow of the data. If you only going to have one license where one person is going to access, then only that one person needs to have access. That's just the way it needs to be. And you've got to be able to deal with that. And if you're going to have, sometimes, yes, this is going to cost money, but in the long run, it saves you money, because clients that know that you are protecting their data, that care, that you care about their information, they are going to come back to you. They're going to decide between you and somebody else, and they're saying, oh, this person doesn't have any policies or procedures about how they take care of my stuff. I'd rather be with somebody that I know my stuff isn't going to be floating around in cyberspace next week. So I think it makes a big difference in terms of what you can bring to the table, in terms of making sure that your clients know that you take that seriously. The money that you spend, you will make it back.
That's
absolutely
good.
And I want to definitely add a couple of things to that. In addition to echoing it is also, you have to think about it like this. Can you stop every breach? No. This is why large companies have the breaches that they have, and they have millions and millions and millions of dollars that they're putting towards that. Part of this is a manpower issue, right? Part of the problem is that we see this as cybersecurity. We see this as, well, what software, what hardware, what firewall? You could have all of those things in place, right? What we're talking about is the secondary side that people don't think about, right? The fact that, let's just say and agree, somebody is going to steal.
Right.
They're going to steal information. Mm-hmm. They're going to do something, right? What we're talking about is making sure that you have the policies, procedures, and the insurance coverages in place to shield your company from that breach. Yeah. You may not be able to stop the breach, but if you don't have the proper systems and internal controls and all of those things in place, right, your company is going to go under. The breach that happens is just, it's done already.
Right.
That's the one thing. The other thing too is, again, it goes back to thinking about, is this important? Is it valuable, right? Is it more valuable for me to pay the $80, right, than to run the risk? That's the first thing. The second thing too, as business owners, this is why you have to know how to attribute pricing, right? This is a cost of doing business. If something costs me, if I have to pay an extra $80 to perform a duty for the client, I'm not paying that $80. They are. Right? So in terms of your pricing, you have to think of your overall cost, before you even think about the price to the end user. Oftentimes, again, I know Attorney Wright has this, like I said, we both do this type of work, but oftentimes this is also the conversation that we're having with our clients. Well, you can't afford to do it because you're underpriced, right? You've undercut your pricing because there's a value proposition that you didn't consider. And so all of these things go into the cost of doing business. You should have the proper coverages. Now, in all fairness, some people don't know. They don't think about it. It's something that they haven't been trained to do because it's not on the top checklist for small businesses. All this other stuff is, but not that. Or they'll just do an honorable mention to data privacy, or make sure you understand the privacy laws. And here's the thing, people won't even read the terms of use. Why in the world would they go and read a 400-page privacy regulation? And that's just one of them, right? The average person is not going to do that. But this is why it's important that whenever you're doing your company review, whenever you are doing your company formation, this is why it's important, right, to talk to a lawyer who operates in this space than to go to XYZ, platform and decide that you're just going to do a corporation wizard and fill in information, because remember, it's coming from your limited knowledge. You don't know what you don't know. So the only information that you're putting in is the information that you do know, which is why oftentimes we have to now charge almost double than what we would have charged to set it up right, because we have to fix what was wrong and deal with whatever that fallout is, then come back and set it up right. And so these are all things, I know that's a little bit, outside of what we're talking about, but I do think it's important to mention how we get there, how we get into a lot of these problems, and why especially micro businesses feel like, well, I don't have the money to implement this. Then you have to think about, where can you find the money? And oftentimes it's because you have not properly priced your goods or services.
That is very true, Attorney Moore. I totally agree with you, because like I posted recently, it's about time for me to do my 6-month review. And I was telling my husband, I'm like, these are some things we got to put in place with me shifting everything virtually now. And before your topic came up, or before we discussed this topic, I was already looking at data protection, people not, stealing and hacking the website, people not, making sure I got the right insurance in place and who to talk to, because even with my executive MBA, they never taught us in depth about privacy policies, in depth about data protection. Even some of the economic development organizations, the SBA, the SBDC in Jacksonville, Florida, those economic development people, they talk about the formation of the business, but they do not go into these areas that both of you ladies are sharing. And I thank you for that. But you're not off topic, because if your pricing is right, then we will be able to afford you all to help us set it up right the first time. And that's what I have learned being in business 6 years as a minority woman-owned business. And I did have mentors as I got started, but this conversation never came up until I connected with Microsoft about 1.5 years ago. But that's on the software side. This is the part that you ladies are talking about with the privacy policies, the terms of use. Because I think it's a website, I forgot which one it was. They even asked me for one. I'm like, privacy policy? I said, why I got to have, it just didn't make sense until I started researching. And that's one thing a lot of business owners don't do. And what you're saying, both of you are saying, is very valid. And I'm glad you all are having the resources and putting them in place. So please make sure both of you share that with me, because Attorney Moore, no, I will get it out there, especially in the entrepreneur community. But with that being said, with the forms and the things of that nature, before a small business even come to one of you all, what do we need to have before we even approach you or Attorney Moore to help us to set the privacy policy protections up, the procedures, the insurance? What do we have to bring to you all, or have prepared to bring?
You can come to us with the idea.
Oh, wow.
Because one of the things, and I am saying, I'm speaking about both of us, is we've worked with businesses from the inception, from the idea stage, to businesses that are already up and operating and moving, to businesses that are thriving, that are looking to grow. So for us, you could essentially come to us at any stage. Now, I say that to say most startups, most people at the idea stage, they don't have the funding. And so I know for me, one of the things that I've done, I have referred clients to like a SBDC and said, do everything, don't file anything, but do everything that you can through these people for free, right? It's going to take you longer than just paying one of us to do it. It is. But do everything that you can for free before you file anything, before you implement anything. Now you're bringing it back to us and you're paying for a review and for us to say, okay, these are the additional things that you may need to do. So in terms of when I work with people at that level, that is my strategy only because I don't do a lot of direct business formation. I know Attorney Wright does a lot of those for honestly for larger businesses, but I know that that she does a lot of formations, mergers and acquisitions and things of that nature with people that are acquiring businesses. You know, we do some stuff in that area. That's a lot more of her wheelhouse than it is mine. And so I think that in terms of what they should have, they can really have anything. My concern is that you're not operating, right? If you heard something either last week or this week and you realize that you don't have some of that stuff in place, you need to make an appointment today.
Yeah.
You just need to make an appointment to get something going. But Attorney Wright, I know you have something to add to that.
Yeah, I would say a good starting point, and this is probably more for existing businesses than it is for people that are startups or haven't been in business before, is kind of doing what we call a data inventory. And the first step of that is figuring out who you collect information for and why. You know, and a lot of times people are not really sure, right? They don't think about who they collect data from. So you collect data from your clients or customers, whatever you call them. You collect them from your employees, your independent contractors. You collect information from your vendors, and you may not think you collect information from your vendors, but you got to know who to pay, right, and where to pay it. And you know, you get their EIN number, and these, again, it's all data, right? Any information you're collecting is data. So this is information that you're collecting. So you need to know who you're collecting it from. That's the first thing you need to do. The second thing you need to do is find out what happens to that information once you collect it. Where is it going? Where is it stored? You know, how long are you holding on to it? Because some of us, you know, are hoarders, information hoarders, and you got stuff from 10 years ago and you don't want to let it go because you think, you know, somehow you might bring that customer back, you know, from 10 years that they haven't been there, let it go. You know, these are things that you have to do, because holding on to the information that you're not even using and you get a breach, now you got to go and try to find somebody that you haven't dealt with in 10 years because you had a breach. Why? You know, these are things that you need to do. So I would say the first thing is just kind of figuring out who you're collecting data from, why you're collecting it, and what you're doing with it.
That's good. That's real good. I like that. So my next question is, with Startup Grind being a global community, international privacy policies, do they differ than what we're doing in the United States, or are they similar?
They're very, very different. And I will say, I don't want to bore people to tears because I know this part is really exciting about what laws we have, but the United States is really far behind in terms of data privacy. We don't have at all any federal data privacy laws. There are various different privacy policies or laws that are in place, like HIPAA. There's, you know, COPA that has to do with the child protection in terms of data. There's a couple of other privacy laws that are out there that, you know, very old, very dated. So there's not really any one comprehensive law. Once GDPR came out, which was had to do with the European Union, and they put that out, I think a lot of states decided, because it seems like the federal government is never going to do this, or at least, you know, in its current state is just not capable of doing it. The states started deciding, you know, we're going to do our own thing. So California has put theirs out, the CCPA, which is already taken effect, and it'll start going into enforcement soon. And Nevada just passed theirs as well. There are going to be other states that have them. Either they have suggestions of them, meaning they've got bills out, some that are, you know, planning on being passed, some that are in review. You know, all the states are looking at this in different places. Now, the hard part for businesses right out there, especially in the United States, some of those in international countries, you know, congratulations, you have, you know, government that's, you know, looking at this as a whole, so you don't have to look at 24 different laws. But for those of us in the States, it's going to be a lot more difficult, because everybody's going to have different levels. So California law doesn't technically affect small businesses, but I have a feeling that they're going to change that, you know, soon. Right now, it doesn't affect small businesses, but I'm still encouraging people to look at that, because I believe that will change. And I believe more states will make small businesses have to adhere to these rules. The Gdpr does apply to small businesses. So, you know, we have to look at this as a whole and say, okay, where's the most stringent laws? And then figure out, okay, we need a policy that's going to adhere to this most stringent law, even if it doesn't technically apply to us, because what you don't want to have to do is continue to update your policies every 6 months or a year. You don't want to do that. So we try to think ahead in terms of data privacy. What do we feel like is happening? What makes sense? What do we need to adhere to? What things do we need to do to make sure that you're not having to come back and do this, you know, over and over again? That's really what you want to pay attention to.
Wow.
Absolutely. And here's just one other thing to that. Everybody wants to be a global business. If you are doing business online, sometimes you don't know where your clients are coming from. Mm-hmm. And the part that you've got to understand in this market or in this online business is that you are held to the strictest standard, right? So for example, presently I live in Alabama. I have clients that are in the UK. So I have to be GDPR compliant because my client is there because they are the owners of the information. Mm-hmm. This is why what Attorney Wright is saying makes so much sense. If you're already set up to adhere to the strictest standard, you already know that wherever it is that you're operating, that your policy will pass muster there, right? And you don't have to figure out, well, okay, this person is from Massachusetts, so I have to do this, and this person is from California, so I have to do that. It's better to just go ahead, go with the strictest standard. But what's important is that you understand that the vantage point that all of this looks from is the vantage point from the consumer, not from the business owner.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you all for clarifying that, because I know in Startup Grind, we have so many different international businesses. They're trying to get in the States to do business, because I haven't been approached with several proposals to partner, but I have not moved forward yet, because I'm still trying to get all the content of what they're envisioning of why you want to partner with me first. And I'm making them putting it in writing, because because I knew about GDPR was coming out. I knew about, listening to the news last night, different states are implementing different things because the federal government is not taking that approach. And I know there are some advocacy organizations in the United States that's advocating for small business. So my concern is in your training that either one of you do or both of you are doing, are you all including, those international nuances that small businesses need to know, especially if they're going totally online, like somebody like me or some of the other entrepreneurs that may be in the Startup Grind community?
Well, to a certain extent, GDPR is the main one that's been the most widespread and far-reaching. Okay. I know of right now. Some things, quite frankly, just can't be done in a webinar. Right? I mean, we would talk every day for 2 years trying to teach everybody any possible thing, right? That could happen. So part of that answer is, quite frankly, some of these folks are just going to have to work with us, or whoever they choose to work with. Like, they are just going to have to do that to make sure. I would encourage anybody that's looking at an international partnership, do not do this on your own, because privacy is the least of your worries when it comes to an international partnership. When I say the least, listen, you may be able to skate by with privacy because you have an entity on the other end, but there are a lot more things that are far more concerning than privacy. But to answer your question directly, I just believe that the principles that we teach are prevention and protection principles that any business can apply.
Okay.
Now, beyond the webinar, right, you have to go back and do the work. You have to know, what does Florida require? What does California require? What does Nevada require, or Canada, and so on and so forth. That onus is on the business owner to now go back and do the work once we say, these are the things that you need to be looking at in your own backyard, right? Now, for the people that say, I'm not cut out for this, right? Then they need to probably get on our calendars, right? They need to probably reach out and say, can you assist us with putting this plan together? And we definitely stand ready to do that.
That's amazing. Miss Attorney Wright, you have any feedback to follow up Attorney Moore?
No, I think Attorney Moore covered it. She's absolutely right. I mean, everything is going to be specific. You can't really just, plug. You can take, kind of a framework, but when you start kind of digging in the weeds, you really have to plug into what's actually happening. So there's no way for us to cover, every single law that's out there, in the universe. We just can't do that. But we definitely, in our webinars and, in our training, cover what I think, you as a business owner need to know. And then from there, I think it's just implementing what makes sense for your particular business.
That's great. That's great. I love it, ladies. I've learned a lot in this hour, and you both are right. We can't get it all on a webinar in an hour. And I highly encourage, individuals, don't get off the freemium mentality. You got to make the investment and pay you all for your expertise and your time. And I totally value it, because trust me, I am strategically working on doing that myself. So for those that's listening and watching, or may catch the replay later, how can they contact you all, ladies? How can they get involved with your programs that you're doing on data protection and privacy, so they can work on it now while we're doing this pandemic and everybody is pivoting?
Right, absolutely. One of the things I mentioned at the top of the hour, we do have an upcoming webinar. Space is limited, but we specifically have a privacy webinar. We will be sharing that link so that you guys can make sure that you get it. The other thing is for people that want to stay abreast, not just about this, but other topics, including intellectual property, contracts, business law, they can come to Facebook, Legal Proof Your Legacy. It's a Facebook group. It probably now more lawyers than non-lawyers actually in the group. And we are actually very excited to be there to answer questions. People post their questions, and somebody in the group typically will answer them. I know for me, when I know specific attorneys that operate in that area, I will tag them to say, hey, did you see this? So it's highly interactive in that group, and you can definitely get a lot of information there. For people that want to come to the website, come to the webinar, they can go to bit.ly/data privacy policies. And you have to put the HTTPS, but bit.ly data privacy policies is the actual link that they can go to for registration. It is filling up very, very quickly. So I would encourage everybody to make sure that you go ahead and register today.
Yes,
Awesome.
and I'll send you the link so that you'll have it, to send out to people too. We'll email it to you so you can have it to put on your site. But that will definitely be a place to go. And then for those that kind of want some tidbits, LaTonya and I are both doing some tidbits out there to you can join us on LinkedIn. We'll be doing it next Thursday, I believe. We'll be doing like a quick 15-minute kind of knowledge drop for you. And so I definitely would encourage you to kind of connect with both of us on LinkedIn, and you can see our lives and talking about data privacy. For sure, I think you really just want to start kind of getting, I know it can be overwhelming and it almost seems like your head hurts after you start talking about this, but that's why we're kind of drip dropping information and not overwhelming people with it, all at once, to kind of give you an understanding of first, hey, let's talk about what it is. And then we're going to start talking about the real steps that you really need to do to ensure that you protect it.
Oh my goodness. I am so amazed. I will definitely make sure you share those links with me, because a newsletter will be going out on June 30th, at the end of this month, of all the women that I have featured for Startup Grind Monthly. Any events, any programs, any services that you have to offer will be going in this newsletter. So make sure you ladies both, give me the standard links for the 548 members of the Startup-Grind-Jacksonville chapter. Will get this email, as well as I share it with the global community with Startup Grind, which is, I think right now we at 3.5 million. We're a little bit over that. But they go back and they read these information. So I have made it my intention this month to recap everything, the video, the podcast, all you all resources that y'all provide, so they can go back. And so when they can say, well, hey, Teresa, I know you had a webinar a while back from Attorney Moore and Attorney Wright, then I can point them to that email newsletter. So any flyers, any events, please make sure you share them with me. I will make sure they get pushed out in the global community, because I truly, truly believe that every business owner, even if they're not in business yet, we got to get it right. Like Attorney Moore said last week, there was 4 things we needed: a banker, accountant, an insurance, and a lawyer. And to me, this topic falls with law and insurance, because we got to protect our vision, our passion. So, and then how to take those actionable steps to protect our customers. So ladies, I thank y'all so much for your time. And before we go, I'm gonna let each of you have the last word. I always give that to my speakers. But before we go, I just want us to take time to acknowledge those who are still being impacted by criminal injustices. We just had 2 more, another recent murder last night, I learned late on Como. For a Hispanic male that was choked to death for 10 minutes, and he passed away. So I just want to give our condolences. Startup Grind has taken initiative that to be silent is to be complicit. And I'm actively involved with a few other the directors and the headquarters team to make sure that entrepreneurs can help change the culture in our world. And I truly believe that, because just how powerful we are as business, we can take our powerful position to also help with change. So I want to send out our prayers and our condolences to those families, to those people in legislation to do the right thing, to get these laws in place. And I bless these 2 young ladies as attorneys, and for what they're doing and how they're impacting. Also want to remind everybody that you have to research and do your homework. These ladies cannot do it all for you. There is some things you're going to have to take time and do the work for. But they are the experts that, hey, let you know, hey, you may want to look at this. Hey, you may need to want to add this. That's their role. But for them to understand what we need, global community, we have to do the work. We have to do the research, have our questions ready, and come to the table with a plan. So these 2 ladies can be able to make sure we're protected and we can continue to stay in business. So this is Teresa Gamble. I'm the chapter director of Startup Grind in Jacksonville, Florida, operating locally but a part of a global network of 3.5 million entrepreneurs around the globe. Before we close out, I'm going to have Attorney Moore and Attorney Wright to give the final thoughts before we conclude our amazing legal proof your business concept today. Attorney Moore and then Attorney Wright.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much, Therese. This is such an honor to be able to provide information, legal information and education to the Startup Grind community, both here in the U.S. and abroad. This is an amazing platform. You are doing some amazing work. And I just want to take my last word and offer it as a word of gratitude for you in doing this. And also, again, to encourage you guys to sign up for the webinar. You can go to https://bit.ly/data privacy policies.
Awesome. Attorney Wright, make sure they you also let us know how they can book an appointment with you as well.
Sure. So thank you so much again for having me. I really appreciate it and taking the time out for allowing us to talk about this really important issue. So I really appreciate that. You guys can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Shahara Wright. You can also find me in a Facebook page with my firm name, it's The Right Lawyer. That's WRIGHTLAWYER. So you can search for The Right Lawyer on Facebook, and you will find my page, and I put out a lot of information about business information on there and nonprofits too. So make sure you do that. Also, you can go to my website, therightlawyer.com. That's THEWRIGHTLAWYER, therighlawyer.com. And again, that has a lot of great information there. You can book a free 15-minute, appointment with me just to have a conversation about whatever's going on. And you can also, if you feel like you need a full hour, you can go ahead and book it from the website as well and pay for it there. But that's really the best way to get in contact with me are those three ways: LinkedIn, Facebook, or go to my website.
Final thoughts, Attorney Wright. What word you want to advise everyone that's transitioning in like Attorney Moore say, this is not the new normal. This is normal now.
My biggest thing is to say it's just you're gonna have to go with the flow. It is a big change for everyone. I think all of us, are learning. All of us are trying to figure out, what's going on. The laws are not, obviously have not, changed enough to keep up with what's actually happening. So there's a lot of change that's happening that, not everybody obviously aren't even ready for it. Even the courts aren't ready for it. So I think that understanding that this is a process is the most important thing, and, and just trying to adjust and keep your mindset together, because I know, especially for me as a business owner, I'm a business owner too. It's stressful. It's hard, especially me. I'm a single mom. I'm at home with my, son. And when we have to do homeschool and, and work and, be in the house and the dog, it can be a lot. So I just think that for all of us that are business owners, all of us that are trying to do our best, stay calm, keep your mind about you, it'll come together. So don't, get yourself in all of a panic, but make sure that you still stay on top of being, a good business owner.
I appreciate those mindful, thoughtful words, and they are very, very true. So I just want to tell Attorney Moore, Attorney Wright, and our global community who's watching, listening, and catch the replay, please make sure you social distance. Please make sure you stay home if you need to. Only go out necessary. Wear your mask so we can get these curves down. We have already superseded all the other countries. So we have to do our part. And all I kept hearing on the news, we got to change behaviors. So this is your host today. Thank you, ladies, both for joining me. We appreciate you so much. You're more than welcome to come back anytime to the Startup-Grind-Jacksonville community. All it is just an email or a text message, ask away. So thank everyone for listening. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Every year, Startup Grind hosts our SG Women Leaders Month, proudly recognizing the accomplishments of successful women leaders all over the world. These women are founders, venture capitalists, engineers, executives, educators, and more who represent our community all around the world. This month's SG Women Month is proudly presented by Google for Startups and Silicon Valley Bank. Every year, Startup Grind hosts our SG Women Leaders Month, proudly recognizing the accomplishments of successful women leaders all over the world. These women are founders, venture capitalists, engineers, executives, educators, and more who represent our community all around the world. This month's SG Women Month is proudly presented by Google for Startups and Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah.